This is the real reason The Dukes of Hazzard was canceled. CBS's chairman considered The Dukes of Hazzard a lousy script. CBS chairman William Paley despised the idea and plot of Dukes of Hazzard. Paley had worked tirelessly to elevate Columbia Broadcasting System from a little radio station to one of America's top 3 television networks. As a result, he didn't want to take any chances and was uncertain that the audience would like the show's Southern fried comedy. In several interviews, he even called the show awful. General Lee received 35,000 fan letters every month. Though Tom Wopat and John Schneider were the show's stars, the actors and producers were taken aback by General Lee's massive fan base. During the 7 seasons, Bo and Lou Duke rode a 1969 Dodge Charger on their daring adventures. In 1981, the program got 60,000 fan letters each month, 35,000 of which were for General Lee, because fans wanted to know more about the automobile. Dennis Quaid wanted to play Luke Duke, but as the show's casting started in 1978, the producers went all out to locate the ideal performers to play the primary roles, Bo and Luke Duke. Dennis Quaid expressed interest in playing Luke Duke, but only provided his then-wife PJ Soles played Daisy, Luke's cousin, opposite him. The producers didn't like the notion since Soles didn't match the character. Thus, Wopat got the part. Daisy was finally performed by Catherine Bach. An injury invented the iconic slide. The slide over the bonnet became so famous that many people considered it a show staple and a cliché for action movies. Wopat was responsible for the slide's popularity among fans. Yet Wopat said in one of his interviews that the slide was not part of the program. He was hurt while clearing the bonnet, and it was left as is. According to Tom Wopat, the classic hood slide was unintentionally developed. He was hurt by the car's antenna while clearing the roof, which is why they removed it. John Schneider pretended to be a redneck to play Bo Duke. Schneider was just 18 years old when he auditioned for Bo Duke. Despite satisfying all the character criteria, producers were split since they wanted someone in his mid-20s. At his audition, New York native John Schneider lied about his age to producers and expertly portrayed the usual cowboy. He did it in everything, from donning the iconic cowboy hat to spitting tobacco and drinking beer. Schneider even volunteered to drive stunts. Producers were so delighted with his performance that he was given the part. John Schneider and Tom Wopat first met in the toilet. They sought someone as appealing as Schneider to portray Luke Duke after casting him as Bo. Wopat used to be a theatrical performer. He was flown in for a screen test by the producers. Schneider was in the toilet when he arrived, and Wopat also ended up in there. They met and quickly became fast friends since they had many hobbies, including music. The filmmakers saw their connection from the first shoot, and Wopat was cast as Luke. Daisy Dukes were a significant concern for the network. Catherine Bach, who took on the role of her alter ego, Daisy Duke's denim shorts were so popular among the general public that any sort of cutoffs became known as Daisy Dukes. Unfortunately, some of her clothes were too revealing, and the network was worried that they'd be prohibited. After considerable thought, they decided that Bach would wear transparent pantyhose to prevent wardrobe malfunctions and censorship. From 1979 through 1985, this particular poster sold over 5 million copies. Nancy Reagan was drawn to it, so when Catherine Bach visited the White House, she gave Nancy Reagan this identical poster. Nancy Reagan was a fan of Daisy. Bach, who played the character Daisy on the show, rose to prominence when Bach sent a poster of the series to her former grade school teacher, Shirley Moore, who was working in the White House at the time. Moore was surprised to learn that First Lady Nancy Reagan was a big fan of Daisy. After learning this, Bach sent many posters, which all became part of the decor while the Reagans were in the White House. The bizarre demands of cast members. The stars of the program made news for their unusual requests. Schneider and Wopat, for example, quit the program in 1982 because their demand for a cut of the series' extravagant merchandise earnings, which was about $190 million in 1981, was not satisfied. As the Duke brothers' relatives, the producers cast Christopher Meyer and Byron Cherry. Similarly, James Best, who played the corrupt Sheriff Roscoe Coltrane, refused to shoot unless he was given his own dressing room. Ben Jones, the show's mechanic, Cooter, also left for a time because he wanted to grow a beard, while the producers preferred that his character be clean-shaven. Some stunts were performed by a miniature car, not General Lee. General Lee emerged as the show's main attraction. Many Chargers were wrecked during the series via crashing, leaping, or abusing. Nevertheless, in the last season of the program, the producers decided to try something new in order to save money on production expenses. They engaged a small effects company to produce computer-generated disaster sequences. Dukes ruled the charts. The song Good Old Boys by Waylon Jennings, the iconic theme song of the Dukes of Hazzard, remained a chart topper on the country charts for the longest time. Not only was it a big hit on the radio, it reached number 21 on the Billboard charts. Just the good old boys, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flatten the hills. Someday the mountain might get me, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Yeah, the Dukes of Hazzard theme song became a huge hit. Dukes of Hazzard's animated series. In a bid to capitalize on the phenomenal popularity of the show, Warner Brothers created an animated series based on the Dukes of Hazzard. Dubbed The Dukes, Hanna-Barbera produced the series, which debuted as a Saturday morning cartoon in 1983. Since it was a totally different form, the producers could enjoy many creative liberties, such as the Duke Boys' adventures set in Greece and Hong Kong. The Dukes, the characters, promised voiceovers from the original cast. However, apart from its awkward timing, what contributed to making it a dud was that Coy and Vance initially featured as the Dukes. Later, the real Dukes were roped in for lending their voices. However, the animated series couldn't get high ratings and was taken off the air after just 20 episodes. The Dukes of Hazzard was based on a movie. Believe it or not, the Dukes of Hazzard is inspired by a 1975 B-movie called Moonrunners. A majority of the show's characters, storyline, and even most scenes were copied exactly as depicted in the movie. The Dukes' little-known backstory. It isn't surprising to assume that the show was all about Luke and Bo outrunning Boss Hogg and the police. However, the actual backstory is quite different. The first episodes of the show revealed that the Dukes got detained for running moonshine, and Uncle Jess made a deal with the police to stop producing hooch if the duo were freed. That's why the Dukes couldn't use firearms in the show and had to resort to arrows and bows and couldn't leave the county. The Dukes of Hazzard was just a filler. In 1978, The Dukes of Hazzard was aired only as a mid-season filler to replace The Incredible Hulk. CBS wanted the producers to shoot just 9 episodes. However, the viewers' outstanding response made the network revise its decision and allow it to retain the primetime slot. The show started in Georgia. The first 5 embryonic episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard were shot on location in Georgia's backwoods. However, later on the place was changed. After 5 episodes, the show moved to California. The Dukes' initial episodes were shot in the Georgia backwoods. Afterwards, Warner Brothers signed a contract for a full season, and the production was shifted to California to cut costs. So, Georgia in The Dukes of Hazzard is, in reality, California. The first 5 episodes were different from the rest. The first few episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard were vastly different from the rest. Initially, the show's target audience was grown-up adults, and that's why it contained more adult humor. Sheriff Coltrane often used raunchy language on the show. However, the production house later made changes to the plot to improve the show's mass appeal. The show underwent major revamping. After the Dukes moved to California, the storyline underwent some major shifts as well. For instance, the adult humor and raunch were eliminated to make it an entertaining family show. The decision worked in favor of the production house as the show went on to become one of the highest-grossing TV shows in American TV history. The Dukes were really famous. Calling The Dukes of Hazzard a hit would be an understatement. The series was ranked at number 2 in America, according to Nielsen ratings, and it gave tough competition to the then number 1 show, Dallas, in terms of ratings and popularity. 2 characters were part of every episode. Two characters appeared in every episode of the Dukes of Hazzard, and no, we're not talking about Bo and Luke because they weren't in every episode. Instead, it's Uncle Jesse and Boss Hogg who made an appearance in all 145 episodes. The Dukes left the show because, despite the fact that the show was named after Bo and Luke, they weren't part of all the episodes. Wondering why? Because during the 5th season, Wopat and Schneider opted out over contractual disputes as the duo asked for a share of the show's revenues. So instead of shutting down the world's most famous TV series, the production house introduced new characters, Coy and Vance Duke, as Duke's cousins. Ratings, however, dropped as the new characters didn't appeal to the masses. And after just 17 episodes, the producers gave in to the original Duke's demands and brought them back. The legacy of General Lee. The Dukes of Hazzard wasn't such a huge hit only because it was a family-friendly adventure series, or offered slapstick humor, or had daring characters like Bo Duke, Daisy Duke, and Boss Hogg, but because it had the General Lee. The red-orange Charger is the show's greatest legacy, and it also appeared in every episode. The car was the star of the show. Yeah, that's right. As much as we would like to give Wopat and Schneider credit for playing their roles phenomenally well and contributing to the show's massive success, it's a car that's the real star of the Dukes of Hazzard. General Lee, the bright orange Dodge Charger, quickly became a craze among fans. The car's name was inspired by the movie Moonrunners, like many other aspects of the show. In the film, the car was named after General Robert E. Lee's horse, Traveler, but the producers of the TV series decided to use the General's name instead.